I know. Don't worry about it. Everyone else did it. I'm just doing this. So what I've decided, I'm gonna conflate and condense the class that I do on a Thursday and a Tuesday with you.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that all right?
That's okay.
That's all good stuff. On you're live now, so no funny stuff. You're out on the ether now. Everyone on the planet, or one person, can actually see you live. Okay. And basically, what I'm gonna do, right? I'm gonna do a little bit of a thing on you in a minute, right? And what am I gonna do? We gotta monetize it, so anyone watching will get a penny. Yeah. Have you ever watched my videos on YouTube?
No, I don't really do YouTube, to be honest with you.
Yeah. There's about 4 or 5 with you in. Most of them being the Wenvo Tunnel. People like that. That was just like that was like a moment in time. That was.
It was a moment in time. I'd had my head, and we were coming out of lockdown 1. It was exciting times, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was exciting times. The time before we all stood as candidates for the Senedd. You know, it was a long time ago. Who would have thought a year on there'd be you and Angus standing for the Senedd? Do you know what I mean?
Crocheting, you know.
What you could do, you could go down to the camp crocheting.
Yes, except the wool for this is in the elsewhere. Yeah.
Oh right, okay, fair enough. That's all good. Hey, and we got one person watching as well, so amazing.
Okay, let's get on with it then. The medieval period, 400 to 1066, part 2.
Now the thing is, you see, most people when they talk about this long period that stretches over 600 years. They call it the Dark Ages, they call it the post-Roman period, they call it the period of early Christianity, they call it the period of the saints, they call it the early medieval period, and so on and so on, right? But the thing is, it's far from a period, particularly the early part, and actually throughout all of it, it's a wonderful period of lots of information and lots of archaeological evidence. So this itself, and I managed this spread over 2.5 hours. This talk, but I'll just try and fit her into about 35 minutes. So this site is really familiar to Rosamond. Did you actually come on that walk at Dinas Powers Hill Fort?
I did.
This is this.
It is there.
But obviously this is when the banks and ditches at Dinas Powers Hill Fort. There's actually 4 sets of banks and ditches, and these were actually built not in the Iron Age, not in the Roman period, not in the far distant past. These were actually constructed around the 400s, which is really unusual. It's massively unusual because we didn't think they were building these types of things in the 400s. In fact, if you would have shown me this 20 years ago, I would have said, Rosamond, this is a hill fort. And in fact, it was actually marked on the maps as a hill fort, and people believed it as a hill fort before the 1950s. Until a guy by the name of Leslie Alcock decided to change history, and he excavated the site, and it turned out not to be a site that people lived in the Iron Age, but they didn't have banks and ditches. A place that people lived in the 400s, 500s, and 600s that had banks and ditches. So what I do, I look at a few different sites. This is actually a very similar site known as Cadbury Hill Castle. So you're standing on Cadbury Hill Castle, looking at the landscape of the Somerset Levels, and this is a site that also has reoccupation into the going into the 400s, 500s, 600s. So both sites, the one at Dinas Powers was occupied in the Iron Age but with no banks and ditches. This is Cadbury Hill Castle, occupied in the Iron Age with banks and ditches, but both sites have something else massively in common. Both sites were sort of deserted and abandoned, and into the 400s they were reoccupied around the same time. So this is Cadbury Hill Castle, and this is probably the best place to start. So Cadbury Hill Castle is there, and Dinas Powers is over there.
Okay.
Right, so all of this area was a marshy, boggy landscape. Right, so this was a huge, boggy, marshy landscape, and and very similar to the huge marshy boggy landscape that's around this site at Dinas Powys.
Yeah, well,
I was so reminded yesterday by Anne. She said, "Oh, did you know?" As if I didn't know. Did you know that Dinas Powys gets flooded a lot? Did I not know?
Yeah.
Anyway, the landscape around Cadbury Hill Castle also used to get flooded, and water used to come. Water, very high tides, and when there was excessive flooding, would have flooded this entire landscape.
Yes.
And the same thing can be said about Glastonbury Tor, which we'll also briefly look at. What we do know about this site is that they found the same type of pottery that you find at Dinas Powys around the 400-500s, the same type of imported stuff that you find at Dinas Powys, the 400-500s, the same type of stuff that you find at Tintagel, right? The same type of stuff that you find at the likes of Glastonbury Tor, the same type of stuff you find, for example, at Landock. Yeah, so you've got lots of sites. In fact, overnight, this period of the early medieval period, and there's another name given for this period, the period of King Arthur. If you go to Glastonbury, they always talk about Cadbury Hill Castle as being a site associated with King Arthur. But what we're going to do, we're going to say it's a site associated with this period. This 400-600s period, this period of great things going on. But up until now, very few people have been really interested in studying this wonderful, rich, intriguing landscape. So again, this wonderful site, right? And and as Glastonbury Tor used to look, and as this looks like now over a rich agricultural landscape, which would have been extensively boggy in the past. Right, and actually, one little thing. Do you know what these are called here? They're called lynchets. Basically, a lynchet is where the landscape has been ploughed and farmed, and then forms terracing, just like on the left.
Right.
Yeah, they're called lynchets. So, and then we move on a little bit further, and again, you see that clearly. So this is a site, again, occupied at the same time as the site at Landock. Right, and it's a really intriguing, impressive site. But again, being used in the Iron Age, then it was deserted, and then it's reused at the time that we're talking about. All of these things have got parallels and similarities. So, so this back to Dinas Powys. What they've been doing at Dinas Powys, they've been re-evaluating the information at Dinas Powys, and the archaeologist Leslie Alcock, who excavated there between 1954 and 1958, told us the information, and then they've been re-excavated since, and the information that we do find proves what was being what he was saying in the 1950s. Obviously, they didn't have the same science in the 1950s as we do now. But all what he was saying, he was basically saying, right, and they were saying about this Cadbury Castle and everywhere else, they were saying, oh, you know, nobody ever lived. Nothing happened between the 400s and you know 1066 because there's no evidence. We don't know where people went. They all went up into spacecraft and so on. And Leslie Alcock said, this is absolute nonsense. This is real nonsense. Where were these people? And as he was excavating, he found the evidence. They'd moved away when the Roman civilization started to get big after the invasion in 43 AD. People thought that they didn't need these hill forts in most places. They abandoned them. Or what they did, they turned the hill forts into massive farm sites. Instead of storing grain and cattle and so on, as they used to be used for, and as a place of power, you know, they just turned them into farms, or they abandoned them completely. But into the 400-500s, they went back to their original places where they felt familiar. Now, one of the things I was saying, have you ever been to this site that's in front of us? Have you ever been to this site, Rosamond, which is called which is the site at Killian?
Oh yes, I have been there with Tom.
Now, just answer me a question, right? Have you been seen the baths, and you've seen the barracks and the wall, and you've seen the amphitheater? Yeah.
Because he said he was taking me to the bath, so I took my swimming costume. I didn't realise it was A relic. Yes.
Oh my God! You actually took. You are really serious. You took your swimming costume and a towel.
Yes.
Oh my God!
Very impressive, isn't it?
My God!
Yeah, I was.
That's the type of thing Anna do.
I was disappointed, but it was a very good. It's very well preserved there, isn't it?
But can I ask you just a little bit of a question, right? Of all the remains that are at Killian, what are the ones what is the one that stands out and the most impressive?
Well, I can only remember the baths. This is quite a long time ago now.
Oh my God! You haven't answered the question right. You're supposed to say the amphitheater.
Well, it was the baths that stood out.
Oh bollocks! Most normal people who don't go to Killian thinking it's a bloody proper baths that you can swim in would remember going to Killian, remembering the amphitheater.
No, I don't remember it. Sorry. So there, I've got things to learn, you see, and it's a place to go again, isn't it?
Well, basically, the amphitheater is the best set of ruins at Killian, right? They stand out. They're clear. They are very, very well preserved, right? This amphitheater is the best preserved amphitheater in the whole of Britain, right? It was excavated in 1956. The thing is, you see, right, is the best set of remains in Killian. It was said after the Roman military moved out, it was abandoned. So why is it so well preserved? If you abandon a site, you take the stone away like they did in Colchester. You know, they demolished, you know, like the circus monument in Colchester and the amphitheater and the theatre. In the Roman period, when the sites become abandoned and no longer used, the other people would take the material away and use it as building material elsewhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this wasn't the case, and do you know what I say?
It wasn't abandoned. It was a secret. It was a secret.
It remained in use, and one simple thing is is the absolute nonsense that this amphitheater was actually built at the same time the fort was actually built, right? And if you think about it, if you build an amphitheater outside the walls of the fort, and the amphitheater actually looks over into the fort, right? If somebody's attacking the fort, the first thing they're going to do is capture the amphitheater, right?
Mm.
That means that the banks and ditches are absolutely pointless. So this is the point that I've actually made. I've said that I don't think the amphitheater was actually built by the Roman legionaries at Killian. I think it was actually built a little bit later, and because it's in such a fine state of preservation, it's likely it was used for a very, very long time. Hence why we're doing it now. There are lots of archaeologists, including myself, believe that this was used into the 400s and 500s, possibly reoccupied, because if you look down at it, this site itself, if you're going to reoccupy a site, right? That's the excavations in the 1950s. If you're going to reoccupy a site, and the archaeology tells us that it was reoccupied, the archaeology also tells us that other than the north and the south entrance, all of these entranceways were blocked up. Mm. Why would they need to be blocked up? And the answer is it's very likely that it was blocked up, right? Because it was used for a very, very long time. And the reason why it's so well preserved, it was used for a long time. Well after the walls of the fort, you can see a tiny bit of a length of wall along here, right? Well after the walls of the fort, and the stone was actually taken from the walls of the fort, right? This continued to be used for a very long time. Unfortunately, that's hearsay, because the archaeological evidence to actually prove whether the fort was used over a long time, right, was actually destroyed when the archaeologist Sir Mortimer Wheeler excavated the site in the 1920s, 1926 to 1927. Sir Mortimer Wheeler was interested in finding the amphitheatre. He wasn't interested in anything that was above it. right? So he excavated, and he kept excavating, and unfortunately, the archaeological evidence that the history talks about was lost forever. Just quickly looking at this, the Roman Amphitheater at Killian has been known as the site of King Arthur's court since the 1100s. But is there any evidence to prove this was the case? Now, it was believed in 1405, when the French army moved into Wales to support Owain Glyndŵr and his campaign against the English crown. As French soldiers en route decided to visit the site of Killian, and there was the remains of what, by historical legend at that point, since the 1100s, 300 years earlier, the French believed in the Arthurian legend as much as we did, and it was thought that this was the site of King Arthur's Round Table.
Wow.
Now, it was first discussed in 1136 in the work of Geoffrey of Monmouth in the history of the kings of Britain. He believed, with a lively historical imagination, that the Roman city had actually played a role in the periods of the 500s at the time of King Arthur. Right? Now, the point is, even though Geoffrey of Monmouth in 1136 in his work about the kings of Britain, he didn't actually describe this as being the Round Table. It was only when his work was translated into French by Wace of Jersey in about 1155 that Wace of Jersey actually said that this was King Arthur's Round Table. Now, I'm not really interested in whether it was King Arthur's Round Table or not. I'm interested in whether it was in use in the 400s and the 500s at the time of this period that we talk about King Arthur, the period of the early saints and all the rest of it. So when Sir Mortimer Wheeler actually excavated there in 1926, he actually claimed that it was the site of King Arthur's Round Table. And he managed to get the Daily Mail in on this, and the Daily Mail paid £1,000 for the exclusive rights and daily reports that came from the excavations of Sir Mortimer Wheeler, that they were printed daily in the Daily Mail. And it was described that Sir Mortimer Wheeler, the great archaeologist who died in 1976, was involved in shameless exploitation of the King Arthur myth. But he wasn't really interested in the King Arthur myth. He was actually interested in getting down to the Roman site itself. And
he got funding, didn't he?
Yeah, he got funding for it. So in other words, the £1,000 that he was tripled. So in other words, £3,000 plus was placed into the excavation. Now, £3,000 was quite a sum back then. Actually, do you know what? I'm going to actually work out quickly how much £3,000 was. So yearly wage. Yearly wage. Right, yearly wage in 1926. We can just guesstimate. Okay. Oh God, I got American dollars. I don't want it in American dollars.
No.
We want it. We want it year. We do. We want it year. So let's just. I like going off in a little bit of a tangent, right? So
tangents are good.
Let's just. I would like to know how much £3,000 is back then, right? Because we can say it, right? So right, okay, income, right, okay. I got a whole table here, and I'm just gonna try and see what we can get. Okay, and don't really want that. Right, it's saying the average wage in Britain is 29,000. Now, really? I don't know what that world they're living in. That's what it is today, apparently. So
right.
Let's just right. Okay, relative sums of money. Right, average weekly wage. Okay, so here we go. 1914. We don't want that. We want 1925. Right, here we go. Time 190%. Okay. Right, okay. So here we go. It's got able seaman, yeah? Oh, right, here we go. 1925. Right. Okay. So 1925. it's saying that the average wage in 1925 was 97 shillings. That don't sound right, does it? I don't think that's right. Hang on a minute.
A year?
No, a week. That don't sound right. That's a lot of money. I'm just gonna.
Well, somebody like what's his name, Mortimer. That would be a wage, wouldn't it? But not the common man.
Ah, right, got it. I've nailed it. Right, here we go. Right, I've got the average weekly wage for a mine worker. So that was quite high in 1926. Was £3, right? So here we go. So we're gonna work this out. So we got to do. I tell you what, if we had another £2 on that, right? These are well-paid archaeologists, right, who were working on this. No, we've got to go with labourers, haven't we? So 3 times. Hang on, let's just do. Let's do. I absolutely love tables. 52 times 3. That's £156, right? So if we think like, you know, mine workers weren't paid massively, but if that's sort of the equivalent of 10 grand in today's money, right? So in other words, if we sort of do 3,000, if we do 3,000, 3,000 divided by 156, right? Comes out at 19. So we do 19 times by 10,000. That's £190,000 that was raised.
That's a lot of money.
£190,000 that was raised for the excavation. And that was for a year. That was for a year. So that's quite a sum of money. 190,000. So round that up, that's £200,000 for the for that excavation alone.
Yeah. A huge amount of money.
That is a big chunk of money. Yeah, that is a lot of money, and that's probably, we've probably under exaggerated that a little bit. So that's quite a big sum of money. Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, it is a huge amount of money. Yeah, it is. For an archaeological excavation for just one place, for one locality. Yeah. Anyway, we've gone off on a tangent, and we liked that tangent. It was good. So Wheeler's excavations focused on the Roman archaeology of the amphitheater, and no early medieval remains were reported. So they focused on trying to find the Roman stuff. So anything. Here we go. So, however, a tantalising glimpse of activity was excavated when they found a brooch pin. So this may have been an isolated loss, but he wasn't really looking for this. But what we do find in the excavations of the amphitheatre at the Guildhall site in the city of London, because they found the amphitheatre in the middle of the heart of Roman London, they actually found out that in this time, in the 400-500s, the site was actually reused. So if the amphitheatre was actually, there's evidence of the amphitheatre in London being reused, why can't the amphitheatre in Killian have been reused? And I tell you what, the remains today are actually really impressive. What were the remains like still back then? You know, that's a pin, a brooch pin, and then so we've done the Killian stuff. So we said that there's obviously got stuff going on. And look at this. Does this ring a bell? Do you know where this is?
No.
It's in walking distance from where you live.
Is it?
Well, when I say in walking distance, if you went for a nice little walk, this is at Langdock. This is at St. Doctor Church.
Look at that.
You could walk there in 45
or
minutes.
There.
Exactly.
Or I could drive there.
You could put your lycras on.
Look at that. So that's medieval.
Yeah, that's medieval. Do you know, Tom actually whispered to me, he said the only reason he's interested in you is you go on your bike with lycra on. And I said that's enough to turn any bloke on. And he said that's my point. I am not any bloke, he said. What? Anyway, so
We digress.
we digress, yeah. So this is actually now, Rosamond, as you've never seen this, right? I'm just right. You've got 30 seconds, right? Your life depends on it, right? Does that look like it all fits together?
Not really, no.
Right. Okay. Answer first question, right? Could the other question is the other thing is this has been re-erected?
Ah.
The other thing as well is it doesn't look like it matches because
it looks wrong, doesn't it?
well, actually, I know this is a black and white image, but if you go there, look at that. That's where it shows now. That doesn't all go together, does it?
No, it looks blooming awful.
It does look blooming awful, and my belief is
Tom
is
put that
that
in the garden. I'd say you've got that wrong, love.
yeah, he has got it wrong. Yeah, so I believe that bit there and that bit comes from the Roman villa discovered nearby in the 1970s.
Oh,
That
yeah.
there is a different style than that, though, but this is a completely different style than that, and that does not match that.
No, it doesn't, does it?
No, it doesn't. The styles are all wrong. It doesn't look right, and
Somebody
it
had
just
to go, haven't they? Somewhere along the line.
yeah. Well, whoever found this originally in the church graveyard has obviously put it all together.
Yes, and saved those bits.
Yeah. So whatever else is in the church graveyard, there's a lot more of this monument. And unfortunately, because it is a church graveyard, we can't go digging it all up. But I believe this is a part of 4 separate monuments.
Yeah, looks like it to me too.
And what is interesting is obviously you've got carved figures on the base bit,
Fine.
like you've got in front of us.
Is it easy to find in that churchyard?
Oh, it's in front of you.
Okay.
You park outside the church graveyard, outside the gates, and you wander through, and you actually do see this monument.
That is really higgledy-piggledy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Well, weirdly enough, this ties in. I believe that the bottom bit tied in with a Roman villa, a large Roman villa site that is actually was actually built upon in 1979, right? So I think that the people that probably originally lived at Dinas Powys, they deserted that site, came to Landock. They built a Roman villa that this is actually part of, and their people are actually buried north of the church. And in 1994, by complete accident, whilst they were building a housing estate, Ideal Homes, they found, the archaeologists had to be brought in and paid for to excavate a site that contained 1,026 burials.
What, at Landock?
Yeah.
Right.
North of the church. And do you know what? There's somebody you know very well. Who's that person there?
I can't see. Oh, is that you?
No.
Michelle?
No.
No, I don't know then.
Barbara.
Oh, it's Babs.
That's Babs.
Oh, look at Babs there.
There's Babs. She looks the same then as she does now.
Yo, I haven't seen her for over a year because of lockdown.
It's Babs. It's Babs.
Oh, love her. Look at that.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yes.
It's amazing. So yeah, that's Babs. So anyway, basically they found these remains, 1,026 remains, and there was lots of human cremational burials as well. And interesting enough, it turned out that when they did radiocarbon, when they dated the remains of 5 of them, those 5 remains dated from this very interesting period between the 370s and the 640s, right? Why that is significant? It links in with the evidence at the Landock Roman site being occupied until very late. It links in with Dinas Powys. And also, what they did find was imported amphora that comes from the continent, dating to around the 400s. The same type of evidence that they find at Tintagel and Cadbury and Tintagel and the Glastonbury tour, I said Tintagel twice there, and Dinas Powys, basically what you're finding is lots of archaeological evidence that all dates to around the same time.
Good, yes.
And the other thing as well is one thing that I've been saying is I've been saying this a lot, is what happened to the people that were associated with the monastery at Landoc.
Right. I've just remembered something else about Landoc. I'll ask me after. I'll tell you after.
Oh, go on, tell me now.
No,
What was right?
No, I'll tell you after.
All right then, okay.
It's off track.
Everything's been off track. Don't worry about it. So in other words, what we've got, the archaeological evidence tells us that there's a clear link between this site and all the other all the other sites.
It's all making sense to me now. I've had a light bulb moment, Carl.
And the other thing as well is they found a body at the site at Dinas Powys, and if they could get DNA from that DNA might link to some of these burials at this site.
So a body at Dinas Powys.
The DNA might link to these people at this site. What's that?
The hill fort at Dinas Powys.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I'm excited now. Excited down.
It's good, isn't it? Oh, we're planning another walk at Dinas Powys as well.
Oh, fab! Hopefully my sister can come too.
Yeah, we'll just chuck it in there. You know, it's just got to be done. It's got to be done.
Right. I wouldn't mind going at Landoc now. You've said all of this.
Now, this itself is on top of Glastonbury Tor.
Wow.
Now, well, it would have been right. So there was a site. There was like a monastic and site associated with some kind of a leader, as very similar to Dinas Powys, similar type of buildings. But obviously Glastonbury Tor, there's a lot more going on. And there is Glastonbury Tor. All this green area and all this is basically indicating floodplains and when you go to Glastonbury Tor in the winter months and it's very wet, the entire landscape other than the town is flooded. Now you're looking at Glastonbury Tor from the town end, but unfortunately when you go to Glastonbury Tor, it's not surrounded completely by green fields because one end of it is you got the town. But this Glastonbury Tor is actually a natural rock. It's carboniferous rock. And guess what the rock is at Dinas Powys? It's carboniferous rock as well.
Right.
Both surrounded by water and inundated by water in the winter months, with this big rock sticking out where people lived. At both sites, very similar type of evidence. So the site at Dinas Powys is not as big as the one at Glastonbury Tor.
But they would have had beacons and could have communicated, wouldn't they?
Actually, you can see Glastonbury Tor from Wales.
From Dinas Powys?
Yeah. But obviously the Tor Tower wouldn't have been on there, right?
No.
But if there was a big fire burning at night, you would have been able to see it.
That.
Yeah, you would have. Communication. So, again, looking from the town all the way up to where the tower's got scaffolding around it, and it's just difficult to work out that this landscape, hang on a minute, they did have an image, this landscape is actually flooded by water in the winter months. And so finally what we've got then is talking again about Glastonbury Tor, and thinking that the Tor overlooks the old abbey, and when they've excavated at the abbey, they've only started working out the evidence and publishing the evidence from the abbey. And when you've got the evidence of the abbey, what you do find is that you find that they found lots of Roman and this period evidence. They found amphora, the same type of amphora that they're finding in Dinas Powys and Landoc. And other localities. So in other words, there's lots going on in the early medieval period at Glastonbury as there is at all these other sites. So in other words, these sites weren't deserted, things kept going.
They'd go down the river, wouldn't they? Up and down the estuary.
In fact, the amphora would have come from the continent, probably from the same vessel that took the amphora to Dinas Powys.
Yep, fascinating, isn't it?
It's all linked.
They stopped at the flat home and steep home and...
Yes,
one boat
exactly.
went one way and one boat went, deliveries like.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way they would have traded, because most of these sites were in the Roman period. Actually, the main way of transportation was actually water and not roads.
Yes.
So we interpret the cleese or court of a ruler, or naiad, a hall, which we've got a hall there surrounded by subsidiary buildings, basically in the middle of an island. This is what Leslie Alcock was saying. So you've got that there, and as you can see, the ground just drops away, and you are testament to the fact. You are testament to the fact that Dinas Powys gets flooded, and so does this Curta Achla landscape.
Oh, brilliant!
This is the bank. When we go there now, we know what this site looks like. When we go. So basically, you go up the steps here. You pass these earthworks, and you wander across. So we've no idea what date these are, but we know what date these are from.
And remind me when the date is.
But we haven't got the Dinas Powys date. We've only got the one for Monday at this minute.
No, I meant of the.
They date the 400s.
But we don't know the date of this one down here.
No, we don't. They look a lot different. They do look a lot different. So this is an image of the excavations from the 1950s. And this is how steep the banks and ditches are at the site. They're very, very steep, if you can remember. Very steep.
It's quite the steps have been put in.
Yeah, they are. And that you can't actually see it from above because they're completely hidden. They're completely hidden in the woods. And there is our Dinas Powys. And when you think about it, right, there's the Dinas Powys Hill Fort. There's the common, the Rugby Common. The reason why the common's not built on is because there's it's a scheduled ancient monument and it's full of Iron Age and Roman remains. Probably remains associated with this period as well.
Absolutely.
And look, and the other thing as well is, if you think about the water, right? I know this is not probably the best image to do, but if we think about water.
It's a relatable image, though, isn't it?
There you go. That's this landscape would have been completely flooded, going all the way up there like that. That's all water.
That floods now. All of that.
Yeah, all that floods now, right? So then you sort of bring it in, sort of loop this around, and then something like this, and then it sort of opens up again, all the way up, right? And then the same thing happens. This is all like this. And then you've got this here, which is the castle site, right? And then you've got this site here, which is something like that. And then you can you see what I've just done then? And then this opens up then, and this is what we're talking about. So this is land. So if we do that's land, that's land, that's land, and that's land.
But you're opening up a route, aren't you, with shipping, as it were?
That's your route there, along there. This is where the ships are coming in. So happy days, and then there's that. I think this is probably the last image, and I'm a bit knackered now.
Amazing, exciting.
And that there is right. So unfortunately, I can't see. I've never been. Right, hang on. It won't let me rotate this, right? But if you the end of that there, that's where the end is there. So if you go that's where that is. So this is the other way round. That's pointing north. That's pointing north.
Yeah, I know.
And this is the early phase, and then they added another 3 sets of banks and ditches. A multi-valeted defensive hill fort in the 400s. And on that note, are there any questions before we finish?
No, that was brilliant. My mind opening, because it made me remember some things to tell you. Multi-valeted hill fort.
Multi-valeted hill fort, exactly.
That's what we've ended on, isn't it?
Exactly. So what I'm going to do is, are there any questions on this today before we finish?
No, I Landoch, I now need to go and explore for myself.
And what were you going to say quickly about Dinas Powys or whatever it was?
On record.
You want me off on record?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Then we're gonna stop this live stream.